Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Red Pill Diaries. I'm your host, Rashid. Hold on one second, everybody. It seems like now all of the lines are being taken down again. From Rumble to Odyssey to... Oh, come on. All right, let's see. All right, there we are. The connection is good. Okay, we got it back. I want to apologize for those who may be watching on locals. The line was cut completely. I've tried, but it's been cut, so I can't do anything about that. But welcome to another edition of the most powerful platform for truth, bar none, anywhere on God's green earth. This is your platform for enlightenment, education, and elevation. This is the Red Pill Diaries, and I'm your brother, host, and friend, Rashid. Thank you all for joining me and giving me another hour of your day and another day of your time. Thank you so much. There's so much to talk about, especially in this environment. And I've been watching everything that's going on, okay? And I've been listening also to the to everybody's take on the matter about the explosions that took place, the burning of the concert hall in Russia, and what are the possible repercussions and the possible responses, right? So I want to add my own 2 cents in on this, okay? It's not too hard to find or understand who's involved and who's behind the situation. And I'm going to put it out there just bluntly. This looks more like a CIA, MI5 or MI6 operation, all right, and a Mossad operation. I'm just going to be honest with you. Before I did this show, yesterday and day before yesterday, I wanted to make sure I had my ducks in a row, right? So what I did, I went to YouTube and I started using keywords that I used years ago, 2.5, 3 years ago, before they banned RT and banned Press TV. And I wanted to see if I could pull up any of the videos that talked about ISIS, that talked about Al-Qaeda, that talked about these terror networks and their affiliation with all of these intelligence networks or these intelligence agencies. And true to form, almost every video was either deplatformed or erased. Almost every video. The videos that were talking about how the CIA was caught transporting ISIS fighters from Syrian fields to Iraq, from Iraq to Syria, from Syria to Afghanistan, from Iraq to the Caucasus. All of that stuff has been removed. And they talk about freedom of speech, right? Remember that the West, specifically and especially America, prides herself and they pride themselves as being the beacon of free speech and democracy. And yet at every turn, they silence voices that are not following the mainstream line of thinking, the mainstream thought. And so this shows you beyond a shadow of a doubt that they are involved in this. Because, again, if you weren't, what do you have to fear? Huh? What do you have to fear? I would not. If somebody accused me of stealing their wallet and they say, listen, I know you stole my wallet, and it's in your bag. And I'm like, man, I didn't take your wallet. No, it's in your bag. Okay, now let's go into my bag and let's see. Why would I fear going in my bag when I know that the wallet is not there? I have a problem when I think that I might be caught. So what I try to do is make myself into the victim and make the victim into the aggressor. Oh, you can't see my bag. You can't see this. No, because I'm feeling that I have something to hide. You understand? So now, when we look at what took place, remember that there were warnings by the West about these terrorist acts, and they specifically mentioned a music hall, right? Now, I did not know this part. I heard Scott Ritter say this about that when the United States says that they disseminated information to Russia, they passed it on. They did not. They passed it on through third parties. And it was vague information, nothing specific, nothing reliable, nothing tangible, or as the Western world likes to say, no actionable intelligence. Okay. no actionable intelligence. And I believe the reason that they passed it on so that they can have plausible deniability. We tried to do this. We tried to do that. Okay. That's what it seems like to me. I want to bring up something because this was on my mind and I pulled it up. So everybody, I'd like to thank each and every one of you who are joining me on Twitter, on both platforms, on YouTube, on Rumble, on Twitch, and on Odyssey. I can't say locals because it got disconnected. It showed me right as the show started. So I don't know. But I want to go to something. I put in these keywords. Every time I do something, I give you the tools to do it also. I put in these keywords. What is an act of war according to international law? Okay. And the first thing came up was something about Amnesty International. And right up under Amnesty International, it says quick reference. And this is from Oxford, okay? An Oxford reference. And this is what it says. An act by one nation intended to initiate or provoke a war with another nation. That is Oxford's definition of an act of war. Now, let's see if this fits the billing with the United States against Russia. And let's see if it fits the billing with the UK, France, and against Russia. At every turn, Russia has tried to sue for peace. And at every turn, they've been rebuffed. And at every turn, there has been an escalatory letter or escalatory step taken by those who claim to want peace, but yet reject peace talks. And at every turn, they have escalated with even more deadly attacks and more deadly weapons, targeting not just military, but civilian infrastructure and civilian gatherings also. So according to Oxford, okay, not according to Rashid, not according to the Red Pill Diaries, not according to any of you who may be in the chat, any of you who may be watching, but according to Oxford, America, the UK, France, and NATO nations have blatantly committed an act of war against Russia. Now let's go to international law, okay? Because that's what we put into this to the search engine, okay? So according to what international law is, it says an act of war is an action by one or more countries against one or more other countries, the scale and scope of which seeks to initiate or provoke a state of armed conflict between the sovereign states in question. Well, let's see if that holds true. Why is there a war in Ukraine right now? It is because America had designs on Ukraine. Remember, see, none of this stuff is in a vacuum. None of it. Remember, Zbigniew Brzezinski talked about the great game, the grand chessboard, and he talked about how to break Russia's power and how to prevent Russia from becoming a great world power again. And he was talking about for that to take place. Okay, thank you. I guess our Odyssey is back live. Thank you. Something popped up on my screen saying Odyssey is back live. So okay. Look, in his book, Ukraine, you have to separate Ukraine from Russia. That's one of the things that you have to do. You have to separate these Slavic brothers or sisters or whatever you want to call it from each other and use Ukraine as a battering ram against Russia. What are we seeing today? I'm asking. Because he wrote the book decades ago. What are we watching today? And he said that he who controls Eurasia controls the global landscape. What is America trying to do? She's in the Baltics. She's in Central Asia. She's in the Caucasus, right? She's with this full court press on Russia's and China's western flank. And then on the eastern flank, she's trying to start a Asian NATO. Do you see? That is not just the United States. That's the United States, Great Britain, France, and all of the so-called colonial powers. They're all in bed with this, okay? So before we go into anything, what I'm trying to show you is that none of this stuff happens by chance. Not any of it. Not any of this stuff happens by chance. This stuff is thought out and planned and then put into action or practice. And it might not work out, which most times it doesn't, but that doesn't stop them from doing it. Okay? So now, they tried it before Ukraine in Georgia because they thought Russia was a defeated, weakened power. That's what they thought. And when Russia beat the brakes off of Georgia, because Russia could have taken the whole of Georgia if it wanted to. And I want to remind everybody who were the advisors to the Georgian president and the Georgian military, and who were the trainers. The trainers and the advisors were, drum roll, the United States, the UK, the French, the Germans, and the Israelis. Now, when we look at the situation today in Ukraine, who are the advisors to the government? Who are the advisors to the military? Who are supplying the weapons to the government and the military? Oh my God, is it deja vu? Huh? No. Again, this is an act of war against Russia, but Russia has some responsibility that fell upon itself. Okay? I have been saying this over and over and over and over again. Russia does not understand the United States. They don't. America will not yield, halt, or stop unless she gets a bloody nose. The British Empire will not yield, halt, or stop unless it gets a bloody nose. The NATO terrorist organization will not yield, halt, or stop unless it gets a bloody nose. And if you allow it to continue to do what it does, guess what it does? It ignores your threats. It ignores your interests, and it continues to push forward so that it can consolidate its interests at your expense. And Russia is paying the price for that right now. Right now. And so here's this little thing. I even heard President Vladimir Putin say this was by ISIS, the Islamic. The president of Russia knows better than that. He knows better than that. I have a clip of him talking about who created ISIS. I have the video of it. So what he is doing is playing to a larger audience, but at the same time, that demonizes Islam. Because if you say that these were Islamic terrorists, Islamic extremism, that puts a black eye on Islam. When in reality, in a summit, you stated that it was the United States and Great Britain. These were tools of the West. So if you're watching a puppet show, see, I like to give analogies to make people understand what's going on because most people don't. If you are the puppet master, right? And you're giving a puppet show, and there are people watching the puppet show, and you have the puppets dancing up on the string, and you know they do their rockets, kicks, and one puppet kicks the eye of an onlooker that is close to the stage. Is it the puppet's fault or is it the puppeteer's fault? Huh? Because we know without the person behind the puppet makes no moves. So if we understand that, and if we look at these things in a just and fair way, Joe Biden says that he is a Catholic. He's a devout Catholic. We know that's a lie, but I just want to put this in terms to show you how that they are used in propaganda to, first of all, to demonize and vilify Islam. And at the same time, they're trying to propagandize you into not understanding what is actually going on. So if Joe Biden claims to be a Catholic, And you hear those in the U.S. government claiming they're and professing to be, and I know this is not true, so I'm not, but I have to put this out there, claiming to be Christians, real Christians. And yet they are the ones who armed trained ISIS and Al Qaeda and Boko Haram and what is this new one, ISIS K or ISIS M or something like that. Then those people who are out in front that are doing it, that's not Islamic extremism. That's Christian extremism. That's Christian terrorism. Because without the backing and the arming of that, this would not take place. According to U.S. law, if you provide material to a criminal, you are guilty also. Right? I'm trying to show you the big picture. Not the little small picture. We connect the dots so that you can see the big picture. So, this mantra of Islamic extremism, remember that they often float back to Wahhabism. Who made Wahhabism? Answer that question. The British. History best rewards those who research it. It was the British who radicalized those bandits who were in the desert called the House of Saud, who are not even Muslims. I want you to understand that. Most of the House of Saud have their ties to the Jewish mafia and the Jews. But because they're in Mecca, in Medina, and because they say, Assalamu alaikum, in Allahu Akbar, you think that they're Muslim. But you didn't know that, did you? Go do your research. The British did that. Because they said that if they could weaponize Islam, then they could use it to their advantage. And guess who helped in that? The United States and France. According to history, not according to Rashid, not according to Google, not according to YouTube, but according to history. And history best rewards those who research it. Okay? So now that we get that out of the way, because I've heard that doctrine, extremism and all that stuff. Man, get that out of my face, because most of them know. But Vladimir Putin, in a little setting when he was being questioned, he admitted that ISIS and Al Qaeda, they were brought about through U.S. intelligence agencies and U.S. policies to cause chaos so that the empire can benefit from it. Okay? So now, with that understood, and let me see. I see you. I see a few people in the chat. George Soros, Net Rando said George Soros plan from the 80s documented. Boom. This is what I'm saying. All right? That's what I'm saying. And Net Rando says, let's see. Was a concert hall attached to a shop? Oh, it was a concert hall attached to a shopping mall. Okay. Okay. So listen. They want you to believe that this is ISIS doing. Okay? ISIS. Well, who is ISIS? And who created ISIS? We're going to find it out. Even though they scrub the internet of that. Right? You know your boy does his due diligence, right? I wouldn't get before you if I couldn't prove what I'm saying, because I know most of the people from Missouri. When I come with a kind heart, when I come with love in my heart and a passion to disseminate what's right, I'll get questioned. It's the ones that come with ulterior motives that get accepted. So this is what we'll do. We're going to see what others have to say about ISIS, okay? So first we'll go to this little clip. This is a minute and 46 seconds. And this is on French television. Okay. All right. And this is a few years ago. This is from French television. Check it out.
The so-called democratic rebels, they are very, very numerous in this international hotel saloon.
Can you tell me where ISIS is in Hama or Homs? Can you name the locations?
I am not going to name every spot because you don't know.
No, I just asked you two
no,
spots.
No, I'm sorry. You don't know at the same time where they are because they move.
I just spoke to the rebels in northern Hama this morning.
Okay,
who did you speak to this morning?
Were you there? No, you had a phone call from somebody who tells what he wants to tell you.
As the U.S. government confirmed.
As well as the U.S. government, I don't trust the U.S. government.
Oh, but you trust the Syrian government, do you?
I don't trust the Syrian either. What I do is
what you just said is exactly propaganda coming out of Damascus.
If you want to speak alone, you speak alone, but you are not going to say the truth. The truth.
Well, no, I'm hearing lies. This is why I'm speaking against them.
The truth is that for the 5 years, we have been told in France and in Europe we are going to get rid of Bashar. In this Syrian army, you have 80% of the Sunnites. Secondly, there are all the Christian minority who support this regime. Of course, he has got opponents, but those opponents, they are mainly al-Nusra, bound to al-Qaeda, and the Islamic State. So there is no surprise.
Assad and the Islamic State have been ignoring each other, according to Jane's defense, as of June 2014.
You Americans have created the
This
Islamic
is a British
State.
firm I'm quoting now.
Well, okay. The Islamic State
We
has been
created the Islamic State
by the American policy. The fundings that
Bashar al-Assad's Mukhabarat was sending jihadists into Iraq to blow up American soldiers for 8 years.
Very simple. We have a devil to combat. This is
yes, his name is Bashar al-Assad, sir.
No.
I think you should rename your organization the Friends of Assad Delegation of French Parliament.
By saying that.
So that's on French television, right? They're arguing about this. And this guy, this intelligence asset from the West, is trying to defend their involvement of training, arming, financing, and then coordinating the movement of ISIS and Al-Qaeda. That's on French television. All right? I didn't make that up. I didn't shoot that video. All right? Now, check this out. This is what we're going to go into a few more clips, okay? I told you, I do my due diligence. All right? But I want to read something for you, okay? I'm going to read a little bit. This is from an article today, and it's on RT.com. And the title of the article is, U.S., UK, and Ukraine could be behind Moscow terror attack. FSB chief says, okay? The FSB is the Russian equivalent to the FBI, for those of you who may not be aware of that, okay? But I want everybody to be aware that when you hear somebody say the FSB, that's the Russian equivalent to the FBI, okay? Now, if the chief law enforcement officer, which is the chief of the FSB, is telling you that, hey, the US, the UK, and Ukraine, then why would you put it on the back of ISIS? And why would you continue to say Islamic terrorism and Islamic extremism when in reality it is imperialism, right? You must have an ulterior motive to demonize Islam if your intelligence agencies are telling you, listen, everything is pointing towards the US, the UK, and Ukraine. This thing over here that may appear to be ISIS is just a smoke screen. Remember, see, this is what America did. Warned of a terror attack, right? Hit her hand, allowed for the terror attack to take place, and immediately come out and say, we see no evidence that Ukraine has been involved. I know you don't, because you were involved with them. We see no evidence that Ukraine, first, if an investigation is going on, and it just happened, if you have some detectives and they're doing a due diligence search around the area where they just found a body, right? And there's a knife there and a gun there, and you see stab wounds, right? And you see bullet wounds in there. And then this guy standing on the corner has blood all over him, right? And cuts all over him. You cannot discard that person, right? If you did that, your investigation would not be worth squat to immediately say, we see no evidence that he is involved. Show me the detectives around the country that would do that. But America just did it. She just did it. And then the Western press plays it up. But let's go into this article just a little bit, okay? Because see, here I force you to think, and to think outside the bounds, not just of the mainstream, because that's one barrier of your understanding, but also the so-called alternative media, because most of them have been compromised too. So you got to look outside the realm of those, because a lot of them have financial vested interests in telling you a little bit of truth and then stringing you along and telling you a little bit more. But I'm gonna come straight with you. You can like it, dislike it, you can hate me, you can like me, all of this, it doesn't matter so long as the truth is told. All right. All right. So listen what it says. This article says 139 people died and around 200 were injured in last Friday's Crocus City Hall massacre. The US, UK, and Ukraine may have been behind last Friday's terrorist attack on a concert venue in a suburb of Moscow, which claimed the lives of 139 people and left around 200 injured, according to the head of Russia's Federal Security Service, the FSB. Alexander Bortnikov told reporters on Tuesday that the authorities are currently trying to establish the identity of everyone involved in the attack, both inside and outside Russia. Now, so right here, the Russian intelligence services have already put a dot on America. Why? Why would you even think that America was involved? First of all, when you're investigating a crime, motive, opportunity, and who benefits the most, right? Who had the motive to get that through, and who has a track record? Listen, before we go to motive, opportunity, and who benefits, who has a track record of doing that, right? The Israeli intelligence service, the Mossad, the British spy agency, the MI6, the French spy agency, and the U.S. spy agencies. They have a history of these acts. So how can you rule them out when their history tells you that this is their MO? That would not be sound judgment and sound investigating. Not at all. So let's get a little bit more. So you just heard what was going on. Now, this is about 52 seconds. I want you to listen to this, okay?
We created ISIS. I mean, ISIS is no less than the people up in Islamberg, no less than Gulen, is a CIA creation. John McCain, for heaven's sake, was over there with the ISIS officials. We created them. They came from the al-Nusra group, the Syrian Liberation Front. These two organizations combined, and they morphed into ISIS. It's our creation. We create them. We still direct them. When ISIS warriors are injured in battle, where are they transported? They're transported, for heaven's sake, to Israel. They're treated by the Israelis in Israeli hospitals and brought back to battle.
Well, plenty of the rebels have acknowledged that they've been supported by Israel, and they've thanked Israel for helping them. Yeah. In fact, arms are oftentimes caught. Israeli arms are caught on en route to the rebel groups.
Now, let us get into a little bit. Now, let's look at ISIS, the main so-called suspect in the bombing of the concert hall in Russia. All right, and let's look at the history of ISIS. Okay. And they told us that ISIS formed out of the void in Iraq and in Syria, but because some of the fighters came from Afghanistan and Al-Qaeda. This is what the U.S. told everybody, right? And they used this thing called Al-Qaeda, which means the database. This was Zbigniew Brzezinski's connections. These were his connections. What is his name? Tom Osman, Osama bin Laden, all right? And all of these other guys that were assets of the CIA. Right now, and I know YouTube might kick me off for saying it, but I'm just teaching the truth. I'm not embellishing anything, and I'm not adding my own 2 cents about it. I'm just telling you what's real. Okay, and listen. So let us look and see if ISIS is truly the culprit, and what is ISIS? Okay, and this will shock you when I play the video of who ISIS is. Okay, and this is not me telling you this. These are informed people with connections that are telling you these things, okay? See, they can scrub the internet all they want to. You got somebody that'll dig and dig and dig. I'm your trench worker, okay? I'm your trench worker. But listen, so when we look at ISIS, I want you to pay attention to my Christian brothers, to my Muslim brothers and sisters. I should say brothers and sisters, but you all know what I'm saying. I know in the Me Too movement and all of this stuff, I might be like brash and harsh and stuff. Charge it to my head and not to my heart. I mean, I'm talking to everybody, okay? But listen, for them always screaming Allahu Akbar, has ISIS ever shot a missile at Israel? One time. And when they did it, the prime minister of Israel said ISIS apologized to them. These are the people that they say want to set up a caliphate or a government or a kingdom. I want you to think about this. Notice that ISIS is always at war with people whom America is at war with. Have you thought about that? ISIS went into Iraq when Iraq wanted America out. They didn't fight American troops. They didn't blow up American bases. They didn't shoot at American bases. They were trying to kill Iraqis who are the same so-called religion as they are. Then they flooded Syria. And only after they flooded Syria was America able to then go into Syria, because America used them as proxies to overrun the air defense bases that kept U.S. planes out of Syrian airspace. If you think I'm lying, go look it up. ISIS did not just have some uncoordinated attack. They went into Syria and they were trying to hit the air defense bases first. ISIS doesn't fly planes. Why would they do that? And only after that did America enter the fray, because now she could fly her planes in, which means that she could then give air support to her troops that were invading into Syria. And not one bullet from ISIS shot at America. Why is that? If these are Islamic extremists, surely that they would be trying to kill Christians and Jews, right? But the only war that they continue to fight is against Muslims. Even into the heart of Africa, the Boko Haram. These are Western intelligence tools to sow chaos in these regions so that French, U.S., German, British special forces can go in and dominate, and then the Western corporations could then come in and siphon off resources. And then the West can control the geopolitical chessboard so that they can remain relevant and dominant economically, geopolitically, and politically. That is the truth. I know you haven't heard it brash like this, but it is the truth. Now, what is ISIS? And what is ISIL? ISI, L, and IS, right? Remember that they say this is Islamic extremism. Well, we're going to hear from somebody that knows. All right. This is about 56 seconds. All right. And after we hear this, we're going to go back to the video that I played right before that to give you an understanding of what is actually going on. So listen close to this.
Against the state of Israel, political plots, and others.
You tell the story about how you tried to find out what they call the Mossad when they deal with publicly?
I thought it was a reasonable question, but the trouble is you can't pick up the phone book. There's no Langley in Israel that you can look up, CIA, or in our case, the Mossad. We thought we should ask, what shall we call it in English? You can translate the Hebrew words, as I said, Mossad is institute, but when they write a letter to their friends in the CIA or the British intelligence, what do they call themselves? It took a while. It was a matter of asking the Prime Minister's spokesman. The best you could do, because officially the Mossad is under the Prime Minister's office. And I think he sort of wondered why you want to know and all that, so we explained. And he came up with the Israeli Secret Intelligence Service. I mean, if it were to have initials, it would be ISIS. Just simple words like that. Interestingly enough, kind of a British model.
I'm cold-blooded with this, right? You know I am. Check this out. A British model. So Mossad is basing their actions after the greatest terrorist organization ever formed. MI6. All right. And the CIA, all of them are working together to spread this disinformation so that they can destabilize, and then they can turn you against me, me against you, and if you're divided, right, and they have a unity, power is in unity, right? So then they don't have to worry about your grievances or your disagreements, because they know there are far too many of you that are divided that you can't produce power to overthrow them. And that's what they're enacting around the entire world. Notice when they go in there, they divide, then they conquer. This is not something that's just out of the blue. This is a blueprint that has been used since colonial times. Again, let's listen to this again. First, we'll listen to Mr. Paul Williams again, and then we're going to listen to this clip right behind it, okay? So pay close attention again.
We created ISIS. I mean, ISIS is no less than the people up in Islamberg, no less than Gulen, is a CIA creation. John McCain, for heaven's sake, was over there with the ISIS officials. We created them. They came from the al-Nusra group, the Syrian Liberation Front. These two organizations combined, and they morphed into ISIS. It's our creation. We create them. We still direct them. When ISIS warriors are injured in battle, where are they transported? They're transported, for heaven's sake, to Israel. They're treated by the Israelis in Israeli hospitals and brought back to battle.
Well, plenty of the rebels have acknowledged that they've been supported by Israel, and they've thanked Israel for helping them. In fact, arms are oftentimes caught. Israeli arms are caught on en route to the rebel groups.
He said something very important there that you may have missed. He said, we created them, and we still control them. You missed that, didn't you? Well, I got to play this. See, sometimes you have to play something over and over again so people can get an understanding, because the first time or maybe the second time it goes over your head, or you might be just catching on to it. But listen to what he said. We still control them. This is an FBI guy now. Listen closely to what he said.
We created ISIS. I mean, ISIS is no less than the people up in Islamberg, no less than Gulen, is a CIA creation. John McCain, for heaven's sake, was over there with the ISIS officials. We created them. They came from the al-Nusra group, the Syrian Liberation Front. These two organizations combined, and they morphed into ISIS. It's our creation. We create them. We still direct them. When ISIS warriors are injured in battle, where are they transported?
We still direct them. We still direct them. You know how a puppeteer does the puppets and how they direct the movement? Mr. FBI man says, we still direct them. All right? So why am I getting to all of this? Because when we're looking at the situation in Russia and how they're putting this on ISIS, one must first understand who ISIS or ISIL or ISIS-K is. And once you understand that, then you'll see that the backers or the puppeteers committed a direct act of war against the Russian Federation. You understand? So again, let's go back to what this guy said.
It's against the state of Israel, political plots and others.
You tell the story about how you tried to find out what they call the Mossad when they deal with publicly?
I thought it was a reasonable question, but the trouble is you can't pick up the phone book. There's no Langley in Israel that you can look up, CIA, or in our case, the Mossad. We thought we should ask, what shall we call it in English? You can translate the Hebrew words, as I said, Mossad is institute, but when they write a letter to their friends in the CIA or the British intelligence, what do they call themselves? It took a while. It was a matter of asking the Prime Minister's spokesman. The best you could do, because officially the Mossad is under the Prime Minister's office. And I think he sort of wondered why you want to know and all that, so we explained. And he came up with the Israeli Secret Intelligence Service. I mean, if it were to have initials, it would be ISIS. Just simple words like that. Interestingly enough, kind of a British model.
You're still wondering who ISIS is? I'm cold with this. I'm telling you, I'm cold with this because I'm after the truth. I'm not after bucks. I'm not after being popular. I'm after the truth. And only with truth can you secure your livelihood, right? Because if it's built on a false foundation, anything can rock it or break it. So we have to have truth so that we can pierce through all of the fog and propaganda that the world puts out. All right? So, again, listen to what this guy says right here. I told you, they got the right one. This is Rashid. I'm your friend, your brother, and your host of the most powerful platform for truth. And remember that this little show is your favorite show's favorite show. Believe that. You can believe that. So listen what this has to say. This is them discussing the CIA and Mossad and Boko Haram and this other stuff. Listen close.
The president of Sudan has warned that the fight against jihadist extremism must engage militants on an ideological level and not solely concentrate on military action against them. Omar AlBashir warned that simply using violence against young radicals who fight with organizations like ISIL and Al-Qaeda could lead to even more extremism.
Our policy has been largely successful. After we arrest these young people, we bring a group of young scholars to engage in dialogue with them about their thoughts. And we succeed in bringing a lot of them back from their radical ideas.
He says the CIA and Mossad are behind Boko Haram and ISIL. He was speaking exclusively to Euronews in the week that ISIL released a video purporting to show the execution of 21 Egyptians.
I said CIA and the Mossad stand behind these organizations. There is no Muslim who would carry out such acts.
The full interview with Omar AlBashir will be broadcast on the Global Conversation on Euronews this Wednesday.
So now, you hear this. Now, I'm going to bring something to your attention that that goes along with the constant rhetoric of Islamic extremism and Islamic terrorism and fundamentalism. Okay, I'm gonna lay some on your head for a second. Okay, remember who he said created these groups, and remember who he said, and all of these guys who say who benefits and who controls them. And then you have to ask yourself, then why do they constantly use Islam to demonize? Okay, and why do they show it being a brutal religion and so that they can turn you against it? Now I want to show you something. Okay, some of you, this stuff is so easy, but some of you never even thought about this, and I'm not putting anybody against it. I'm not talking YouTube. Listen, I'm not trying to prove in superiority. I'm not doing racial or ethnic strife or any of that stuff. I'm not pushing against any religion. I'm just laying facts down. Okay, all right, we'll do that. I have to put that out there because YouTube will hit me with anything. Now, I bet you most of you Christians don't even realize this. Okay. Because I hear a lot of Christians demonize Islam. But do you know that Islam recognizes Jesus to be the Messiah? Do you know that? I bet you didn't know that. Some of you didn't even know that. Do you know they recognize his birth with Mary? Do you know they recognize him as being a great person of God? Do you know that? But do you know that Judaism doesn't? Huh? They don't even recognize Jesus at all. Did you know that? I just want to put that on, lay that on the line for those of you who are listening, because they talked about the three great Abrahamic faith, and I want you to understand that when dealing with this stuff, there is an ulterior motive behind what is going on here, and they are seeking to break the back of Islam so that they can commercialize on you and subjugate you to their propaganda. So, again, I have to say these things. I'm trying to address so many things in a short time span that I have right now, okay? And I want to say this to everybody who's watching. We're supposed to have Carl Zabak on sometime this week. I don't know. I think it might be tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken. I could be mistaken on that, but I believe it's tomorrow. We're going to have the Turkish journalist live from Istanbul Friday. All right, Tariq Amar, he'll be on Friday. For those of you who are watching right now and who will be watching. So I want to say it now. Let's go to something. Now that we have an understanding of who ISIS is, all right, and for those of you who may not know, I'll play another clip that'll cement what I'm talking about. But right now, the bombing of what took place in Russia, that was an American, British, Israeli thing. Do you know that Israel is quietly supplying weapons and radars to Ukraine? She's doing the same thing that she did in Georgia. Remember, I told you this is a movie on repeat. It's a movie on repeat. And let me tell you, the escalation. America is, she's such, what kind of word would I use for this? Because she's in her feelings so much now that she's losing. This is what she did, right? As Russia was hit with the bombing and Russia escalated and started destroying NATO facilities and Ukrainian facilities all across Ukraine, because that's what those missile strikes were. Let nobody fool you about these strikes were directed at not just weapons manufacturing plants, but decision-making centers across Ukraine. I know, I've talked to people about that. All right. And so because she knows that Russia was coming back striking, you know what she did? She escalated in Syria. Remember when I told you that all of that stuff is connected, interconnected? And she started, out of the blue, she started bombing Syrian positions, Syrian military and civilian positions yesterday and day before yesterday, killing civilians and soldiers. That didn't make the news, did it? She escalated. While screaming de-escalation, she escalated. Google this. If for those of you who may be on the computer, Google it. At first, when the strikes took place, the Syrians were trying to find out where the strikes was coming from and what reason they were. So they engaged their air defense systems and they were shooting at the planes or whatever. And the U.S., and some say Israel, but I know for a fact, the U.S. was bombing civilian and Syrian military positions. Out of nowhere. They weren't attacked. They weren't accosted. Isn't this not an act of war? That's Syria's territory. That's Syria's airspace. And America says that she has the right to bomb the people who own the airspace and own the land and who, by international law, it belongs to. How hypocritical is that? While screaming about freedom and territorial integrity of Ukraine. Nobody says it. Nobody screamed out. You didn't hear Joseph Borrell scream about international law. You didn't hear Tony Blinken scream about international law and the right to protect civilians and all of this. You didn't hear none of that. Not a peep of that went on as they illegally and unjustly bombed civilians and the Syrian military forces in Syria. Listen to what I just said. They didn't bomb the Syrian civilians and the Syrian military in Iraq. They didn't bomb them in Lebanon or in Turkey. They did not bomb them on U.S. soil. They bombed them on Syrian soil through Syrian airspace. Now think about the outrage, everybody. If Syria had that capability and did that in the United States, wouldn't America go to nuclear war over that? So what I'm showing you is the hypocrisy here of what's going on. But I want you to hear something. For those of you who have already heard it, you're going to have to hear it again. I want you to listen to something. And this will put in perspective the bombing of that concert hall in Russia. Remember, prior to the bombing of the pipelines, the oil and gas pipelines in Europe, that Victoria Nuland and Joe Biden threatened to destroy the pipelines. And when they didn't get their way, guess what happened? The pipelines were destroyed. And guess what? Here's the kicker. America could not figure out, and Europe could not figure out who bombed the pipelines, but within minutes of the explosion at the concert hall and the killing of the people in the concert hall, they knew it was ISIS. How in the hell is that even possible? You know more about what's going on in Russia than Russia, but you don't know what's going on in Europe. Come on, man, stop this. Stop insulting people's intelligence. Okay, so I want you to listen to this. All right, this is about 48 seconds.
With the $60 billion supplemental that the administration has requested of Congress, we can ensure that Ukraine not only survives, but she thrives. With this support, in 2024, we can help ensure Ukraine can continue to fight, to build, to recover, and to reform. With this money, Ukraine will be able to fight back in the East, but it will also be able to accelerate the asymmetric warfare that has been most effective on the battlefield. And as I said in Kyiv 3 weeks ago, this supplemental funding will ensure Putin faces some nasty surprises on the battlefield this year.
Let's play that one more time, okay? That last part, right? I want you to listen close to what she said.
With the $60 billion supplemental that the administration has requested of Congress, we can ensure that Ukraine not only survives, but she thrives. With this support, in 2024, we can help ensure Ukraine can continue to fight, to build, to recover, and to reform. With this money, Ukraine will be able to fight back in the East, but it will also be able to accelerate the asymmetric warfare that has been most effective on the battlefield. And as I said in Kyiv 3 weeks ago, this supplemental funding will ensure Putin faces some nasty surprises on the battlefield this year.
According to Wikipedia, asymmetric warfare means it is a form of irregular warfare, conflicts in which enemy combatants are not regular military forces of non-states. Now, nation states. Now, check this out. What is asymmetrical warfare? According to the definition, Merriam-Webster's definition is this: warfare that is between opposing forces which differ greatly in military power and that typically involves the use of unconventional weapons and tactics, such as those associated with guerrilla warfare, and guess what this part says? And terrorist attacks. She said this will ensure that Ukraine will be able to use asymmetric warfare against Russia and that Putin would have a lot of nasty surprises in the coming weeks, right? According to the definition, it's warfare that is between opposing forces that differ greatly in military power and that typically involves the use of unconventional weapons and tactics, such as those associated with guerrilla warfare and terrorist attacks. What happened in the concert hall? There was a terrorist attack. After who said that they would ensure Ukraine was able to use asymmetric warfare? I'm asking. I mean, just circumstantially, they would be convicted in a court of law. Circumstantially. That with what we just presented right now, the U.S., the U.K., and Israel would be convicted in a court of law on circumstantial evidence. Now, if I know this, and I'm a nobody when it concerns geopolitics and whatever, don't you think that the Russian intelligence agencies know this also? Don't you think that the Chinese intelligence agencies know this? Don't you think that the South African and the Iranian intelligence agencies know this also? Huh? Of course they do. Common sense tells us they do. Right? I didn't go to school for intelligence things. I'm intelligent, but not in the way that they use the word intelligence. Right? FN Fall, I'm sorry, I'm messing your name up. I'm gonna put this on the screen for. Says Israel has treated ISIS soldiers. That's right. They even have videos of the Prime Minister of Israel shaking hands and going bedside with ISIS fighters, congratulating them for fighting against Syria. What are the odds that this is an Islamic extremist group, meaning that they are about establishing a caliphate or a kingdom ruled under Islam, and yet fight nothing but Muslims? Not Israelis, not Americans. They're not firing missiles in occupied Palestine. They're not firing missiles at U.S. bases. They're firing them at Muslims and dedicated Christians. I'm telling you, man, these people are out of their mind. Seriously. So, again, this is what, let me go to something real quick, because I believe that this is something that should be read. All right. I brought this up on a previous show, our last live show, and it was by Dimitri Trenin. When I did the interview with Dimitri Lascaris, he actually said he met Dimitri Trenin, right? So he knows him personally. And he said, this guy right here is somebody with some weight in Russia. And he's thinking our terror attack doesn't add up. This is what he said. And it says, Russian foreign policy could change significantly depending on the result of the investigation into the atrocity. The heinous act of terrorism at the Crocus City Hall concert venue just outside Moscow on Friday night, which is confirmed to have killed more than 130 people at the time of writing, has perhaps shaken Russia more than anything since a similar attack on a theater in the capital in 2002. Stop right there. 2002. Who was behind that one too? Huh? You see a pattern. There was an attack, a terrorist attack in Russia in 2002 at a theater. And the Russians said that they had connections with the intelligence services of the West in 2002. We're in 2024. Huh? And we just proved the connections with the terrorist organizations. And I don't think I should say the connections with the terrorist organizations. I think I'm out of line when I say that. So let me put it like this. The terrorist organizations have connections with their patsies, because the terrorist organizations are the alphabet soup of intelligence agencies that run and make and finance and do cover for these patsies that they use as a battering ram against anybody they deem a threat to their world order. That's what I should have said. So I have to straighten out what I said. Okay. So Dimitri goes further and says, this latest atrocity will certainly have a major impact on the Russian people's consciousness and the nation's public security. It could also lead to serious changes in Moscow's foreign policy, depending on the result of the investigation into the source of the attack and its masterminds. The source of the attack were those guys, right? And now the masterminds, the people who put them up to it, who financed them, who bagged them, and who gave them safe haven. That's what that's talking about. Considering the enormously high stakes involved in its findings and conclusions, there is no doubt that the investigation will have to be incredibly thorough. The U.S. government's version of an Islamic State connection to the attack has been met with skepticism by Russian officials and commentators. Firstly, they were surprised by how quickly, the same thing I just said, virtually within minutes, Washington pointed the finger at the group. What also drew the attention of Russian observers was the U.S. reference to an ISIS-linked news site which had claimed responsibility for the crime. Normally, all such sources are subjected to thorough checks, but not this time. Figures in Russia have also noted that American spokesmen immediately and without prompting declared that Ukraine was in no way linked to the act of terror. Other criticisms of the American version include the style of the attack. No political statements or demands were made. The admission by one of the captured attackers that he had shot innocent people for money, and the fact that this was not planned as a suicide operation. Many experts have pointed out that ISIS is far from its prime and that Russian forces defeated its core elements in Syria years ago. This has allowed speculation to grow about a false flag attack. I'm going to stop right there for a minute. Now, let me put something on your mind real quick, okay? Have you ever noticed that when something benefits America and it's a heinous act, right? They know the terror organization, they know the leadership, they know the family member, they know the tree, everything. And yet they can't find out who bombed the pipeline. It reminds me of 9/11. And what I mean by 9/11 is this. They say planes melted steel, right? And here it is at the same time as the plane melts steel. And I remember this like it was yesterday. CBS News had immediately started saying that a passport of one of the terrorists was found. I want you to understand how improbable and impossible this is. To be in a plane, and the plane crashes into a building, to destroy, to melt that building down to nothing, to scrap, right? That's steel, that's concrete, that's reinforced concrete. And it did not withstand the blow of the so-called plane. And yet a paper passport survived the explosion, survived the fire, survived the plane's crash into the building. If you don't get the flip out of here with this madness, I'm telling you this. So it goes further. It goes further and says this. Ukraine, true to form and alone among the nations of the world, has suggested that the Crocus City atrocity was an operation carried out by Russia's own secret security services, launched to facilitate a further tightening of the political regime and a new wave of mobilization. Now, I'm going to tell you what's wrong with that. I'm going to tell you what's wrong with that. That could be a plausible thought of people. That's not an improbable thought of people. See, I'm a straight up person. That's not an improbable act. But I'm going to tell you what's wrong with that line of thinking. To shore up the regime, Russia had already shored up the regime. There was an election prior to that where Vladimir Putin took 87 or 80% of the vote, 88% of the vote. So it was as sure as it can be to have 88% of the people of Russia backing you. So there was no need for that. Because you have consolidated your power. You already ran the oligarchs out, and the ones that stayed had to bow to your will. You already had cemented yourself with the backing of the military and the political elite. So there would be no need for the false flag operation. You see? And here it is coming from somebody that never been in government before. Somebody that's never rubbed elbows with the elite. And yet common sense tells me this. But common sense is not so common in today's world. Do you understand? Man, I'm telling you. Mehdi says, Mehdi, that's a good one right there. Let me put this one up here. Mehdi says maybe they should start building those skyscrapers with the passport paper. Mic drop moment. Boom. That's a mic drop moment right there. I'm telling you. Oh, and by the way, for the channel members, we're going to do a live stream. I got to make up that live stream that we didn't do due to the fact that we did the Dimitri Lascaris. We're going to do it Friday or Saturday, okay? So just bear with me. I'm one person and I'm trying to do all of this and bring you all these guests on the show, okay? So, let's see. Betty says, hold on, let me go back one second. It says, and then tells us they warned the Russian, complete BS. These people cannot keep their lies straight. That's what I'm saying. Anybody with common sense can see through this. like I often say, it's almost like, you know, I know every one of us have somebody that has we know somebody that is either addicted to a substance like alcohol or drugs or something like that, right? And they're battling their demons, because we all have other demons we battle. Some people are addicted to accolades and applause. And that's just as addictive as cocaine and everything else. So we have these people that we know, or family members that we know, or friends that we know that have been addicted to or have substance abuse, right? And in their mind, when they're talking to you, it's rational. But you and everybody else who are the onlookers are saying, I know this guy don't believe that we believe this crap that they're saying. Because you're like, is this guy serious? Well, you know, because they can make up lies quick. This is what the government is. They act like crackheads. That's what they act like. A lie here, a lie there, and they'll change the story. And guess what happens? The scribes, right? And I call them the scribes. That's modern day media. Remember, the scribes were the media back in the time of the prophets, like Jesus and Abraham and Moses and all of the prophets, right? And the scribes were essentially the mouthpiece for the people in power. And whatever was the order of the day from the government or the people in power, the scribes disseminated it to the people. That's what is going on today. And this is why America is in a downward spiral that cannot be stopped. This is why the Western world is collapsing, because instead of dealing with people with truth, they prefer to lie, deceive, and exploit. And there's no way on God's green earth can that go on in perpetuity when God creates the universe in righteousness after his idea and after him. Untruthfulness and lies cannot prevail with God. You've got to be right. You've got to tell the truth. And this is what I'm saying. And I'm not going to get religious, but I'm just telling you. Other people are scared to say this because they're scared to alienate people. If you don't want the truth, peace. But I'm going to give it to you as long as God enables me to. That's the truth for me. Because my mom looks on this stuff, you know, and I know what she taught me. And I'm going to do my best to disseminate the truth. Not just because I want an audience. It's because it's the right thing to do and because God is watching. Even when nobody else is, God is. And we got to keep that in mind when we're dealing with this stuff here. But America and the UK and NATO has become inebriated on their military machine, on their economic prowess, that they had become so drunken with it that what God did was he handed them the rope to hang themselves. He allowed America to take herself and take the world off the gold and silver standard. And now we're living in the ramifications of that right now. Back in the 70s, you didn't see it. The 80s, you couldn't see it. The 90s, the decade of prosperity. And now that we see that the head is taken off the snake, the body is just twitching, and rigor mortis is setting into the economic system of the West, the political system of the West, the military system of the West. Rigor mortis is setting in because we're watching the death of an entire system, because it's unjust, immoral, unethical, racist, and fascist to the core. That's right. Man, I'm telling you, it is something else. Oh, man, I've had hours. I didn't mean to keep you here for an hour and 10 minutes. Oh, my God. Oh, my God, I didn't mean that. Listen, everybody, we'll be trying to, I think tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken, it may be tomorrow. I might have the schedule mixed up, but I'll check the schedule. You guys come back with me tomorrow. But I'm glad everybody checked out the post I made in the community section of YouTube. I want to say this to YouTube and everybody listen. Rumble, I've seen that every now and then you take 1 or 2 subscribers from me here and there too. So I just want to put that out there. It's not exclusive to YouTube. So, but I want to say this. YouTube has been taking dozens of my subscribers this week. and they've been suppressing. As a matter of fact, let me show you something. I believe I can pull something up for you. And after I made that plea on my page, let me see something. I want to show you something real quick if I can pull it up. All right, let's see. Please let me be able to pull it up. All right. Let's see if I can put this up. This is what I continue to get now. Oh, I don't think you'll be able to see it because I got the. Well, anyway, they're talking about we are experiencing issues with the systems for real-time data. This may cause inaccurate view counts and reports of video performances. We're working on the issue. And then it has something else down there. But I keep getting that all the time. All the time. So there's an effort to suppress the channel. So what we're going to do, you guys, along with me, I'm doing my part, you do your part. Let's beat the algorithm. And check every time you come to the show, check and see if you're still subscribed. And if not, resubscribe. Hit the bell icon. Share the video. Tell others about the thing, because that's the only way that we're going to get back in the search engine. That's the only way that we're going to be able to beat them, because they think that they have defeated truth. But I want to tell them, that's an army that you cannot withstand. Truth will always prevail. And we will prevail as we go forth and walk hand in hand with what? The truth. On that note, I thank each and every one of you for giving me your time of day, because I know that time is precious and priceless. It is the most precious commodity. And once we run out of it, there's no getting any more. So I hope that this show has given you, in return for the time that you've spent with me, an equal or greater pay. I go out the same way that I always come in, with love in my heart for each and every one of you, if you love truth. But know that the love that the true and living God has for you will always supersede what I have for you. Until we next speak again, stay strong, stay true, but above all things, stay righteous. Hey, mama, your baby boy loves you more than life. Deuces, everybody. We out of here.